Welcome to the Are You Loading Your Dishwasher Wrong? Right now, you are probably weaponizing your own soap to permanently destroy your favorite glassware.
You really are. I mean, it sounds dramatic, but it's true.
Yeah, and you're doing it out of this misguided sense of domestic responsibility, Like if you really stop and think about it, the kitchen is ground zero for some of the most intense, silently fought battles in any household.
Oh, absolutely. The passive-aggressive rearranging of the plates.
Yes. We all have that one roommate or partner who loads the dishwasher like they're just, I don't know, tossing garbage into a dumpster.
Just chucking it all in there.
Right. Or maybe you're the micromanager who comes in behind them and completely rearranges everything they just did. We inherit these domestic habits, right?
Yeah, we totally guess our way through it.
Exactly. We carry them for decades without ever pausing to ask if the metal box under the counter actually works the way we think it does.
And that is exactly the problem right there. People treat the dishwasher like a magic portal.
A magic portal. I love that.
Well, I mean, you put the dirty plates in, you press a glowing button, you hear some swooshing noises, and boom, clean plates emerge. But the reality is, a modern dishwasher is this incredibly sophisticated piece of fluid dynamics and chemical engineering.
It's not just a big sink that sprays water.
Not at all. Almost everything the average person does out of sheer instinct, like aggressively washing their dishes before putting them in the wash, is actively fighting against the design of that machine.
Which is wild to think about. So we're looking at a fantastic source today for this deep dive. It's a highly practical breakdown from the YouTube channel, Clean That Up.
It's a great video. Really gets into the weeds.
It really does. And our mission here isn't just to give you like a basic chore tutorial. We want to completely reframe your relationship with this appliance.
Because if you understand the physics and the chemistry happening behind that closed door, you're going to save thousands of gallons of water over your lifetime.
Right, and you're going to claw back hours of your personal time, plus your dishes are going to be infinitely cleaner.
So much cleaner.
So let's just rip the Band-Aid off right now. Let's start with the single most controversial topic in the entire culinary cleanup world.
Oh boy. The pre-rinsing debate.
The pre-rinsing debate. I mean, I know people who treat pre-rinsing like a religion. They will stand at the sink and essentially wash a plate until it looks completely spotless and then put it in the dishwasher.
Yeah, they run a full manual cycle before the machine cycle.
Exactly. So are we supposed to be doing this?
The answer from our source, and honestly from appliance engineers and chemical manufacturers everywhere, is a definitive, absolute no.
Wait, like zero rinsing?
Zero rinsing. You should not rinse your dishes. You should scrape off the large physical pieces of food, obviously.
Okay, so like the chicken bones, the half-eaten carrots, that kind of stuff.
Right. Chunk of mashed potatoes, toss out in the trash. But the sauce, the grease, the sticky residue, that actually needs to stay on the plate.
See, I hear you say that, and my brain just instantly rejects it.
It's hard to accept, I know.
It feels completely counterintuitive. It feels gross to put a saucy, sticky plate straight into a pristine machine. And honestly, if I'm pre-rinsing, isn't that just giving the dishwasher a head start?
You'd think so, but no.
I mean, how could it possibly be a bad thing to put a mostly clean plate into the wash?
To understand why it's actively detrimental, we have to talk about the chemistry of modern dishwasher detergents.
Yeah.
We aren't dealing with the simple liquid soap our grandparents used in the sink.
Right, it's not just bubbly dish liquid.
Exactly. Modern detergents are marvels of chemical engineering. They're packed with specific biological catalysts called enzymes.
10 enzymes.
Yeah, and an enzyme's entire job is to speed up a chemical reaction. So you've got proteases, which are designed to break down protein chains.
Like baked on egg yolks or meat residue?
Spot on. And then you have amylases, which target complex starches like dried pasta or potato residue.
Okay, I actually love thinking about this. So the best analogy I can come up with is that modern detergent is essentially a heat-seeking missile.
Oh, that's a really good way to put it.
Right. But for a heat-seeking missile to work, it has to have a heat signature to lock onto. The enzymes need a target.
That's incredibly accurate. The enzymes literally are the guidance system. The chemical reaction literally requires the presence of food soils to activate properly.
So they have to hit the food to work.
Right. It operates on a biological lock and key mechanism. If you pre-rinse your plate so thoroughly that the starch and protein are completely gone, you're firing a heat-seeking missile into an empty sky.
Oh, wow. So they just wander around.
Yeah, the enzymes are released, they float around the water, they find nothing to latch onto, and they just get pumped right down the drain.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate here. If they just get pumped down the drain, then I've wasted a pod, sure. But my plate is still clean because I rinsed it.
Right, you'd think there's no harm done.
Yeah. Where's the harm? Why does it actively hurt the glassware like we talked about at the top of the deep dive?
Because of the other ingredients in the detergent. Besides enzymes, these pods contain highly alkaline salts and surfactants.
Okay, so heavy-duty chemicals.
Very heavy duty. They are highly caustic, formulated specifically to attack stubborn organic matter and neutralize acidic food soils. When you leave food on the plate, that food acts as a buffer.
A buffer, meaning the soap attacks the food instead of the plate.
Precisely. The alkaline chemicals spend their energy breaking down the lasagna crust. But if there is no lasagna crust,
If the dishes are already practically perfectly clean,
then that highly caustic alkaline solution has absolutely nothing to attack except the dishes themselves.
oh wow. So the soap literally turns on the dishes.
Yes, it really does. Over time, this unbuffered alkaline assault actually begins to leach sodium and silicate ions out of the glass matrix itself.
That sounds incredibly destructive.
It causes microscopic pitting on the surface of your nice drinking glasses. That's what glass etching is.
Wait, you know when your glasses get that cloudy, permanent scratching that you just can't wipe off?
That's exactly it. People think that's hard water buildup.
I always thought it was hard water.
Nope. Most of the time, that is permanent chemical damage caused by using heavy-duty detergents on perfectly clean glass. You are literally dissolving the outer layer of your glassware because you didn't leave enough food on the plate to keep the soap busy.
That completely flips the script. I mean, by being an overachiever at the sink, you're weaponizing your soap against your own kitchenware.
You're doing the machine's job and making the machine punish your dishes for it.
But what about the machine itself? Because I've heard that modern dishwashers actually know how dirty the water is. If I put a clean plate in, doesn't the machine just realize it and adjust?
It does adjust, but not in a way that helps you. Most dishwashers manufactured in the last 15 years or so utilize something called a turbidity sensor.
Turbidity. That's just fancy word for how cloudy a liquid is, right?
Exactly. It's the scientific measurement of how murky a fluid is. The machine has a small infrared light-emitting diode and a photodetector inside the tub.
Okay, so it has a little laser beam inside.
Basically, yeah. During the initial pre-wash phase, the machine sprays water around, letting it drip down into the basin, and it shines that infrared beam right through the water.
So it's basically measuring how much light makes it through the water to gauge the dirt level.
Exactly. If the water is full of heavy food particles, the light scatters. The sensor reads that poor light transmission and tells the dishwasher's internal computer, hey, we have a highly soiled load.
So it brings out the big guns.
Right, it says, we need to heat the water to 150 degrees, increase the spray pressure, and run for a full 2.5 hours.
Okay, but if I pre-rinse everything?
If you've obsessively pre-rinsed all your dishes, that pre-wash water is going to be crystal clear. The light passes straight through.
And the computer assumes the dishes are barely soiled.
Exactly. It assumes it's a super light load.
And so it cuts the cycle short. But honestly, again, devil's advocate here, isn't that a good thing?
You'd think saving time is good.
Yeah. I'm saving electricity. I'm saving water. The cycle finishes in an hour instead of 2. Why is that a problem if the plate looked clean anyway?
Because looking clean and being sanitized are two vastly different things.
Ah, okay. Sanitation.
Right. Your sponge might have wiped away the visible tomato sauce, but it likely smeared a microscopic layer of bacteria all over the plate.
Like from raw chicken you prepped earlier, or just general kitchen grossness?
Exactly. When the machine cuts the cycle short, it doesn't just reduce the time, it significantly lowers the water temperature.
So it doesn't get hot enough to kill the germs?
It might not reach the thermal threshold required to denature those bacterial proteins. You are essentially tricking the machine's onboard computer into running a light-duty rinse cycle on dishes that actually need high-heat sanitization.
You're outsmarting yourself. You're guaranteeing a worse wash.
You really are.
And let's talk about the real-world resources here, because our source makes a fantastic point about water usage. People think they're helping the environment by pre-rinsing, but the amount of water you waste standing at the sink is terrifying.
It really is staggering. A modern Energy Star-rated dishwasher is incredibly efficient. It uses roughly 3 to 4 gallons of water for an entire comprehensive load.
Wait, 3 to 4 gallons total for the whole 2 hours?
That's it, 3 gallons. If you stand at the sink with your faucet running at full pressure, pre-rinsing every single plate, bowl, and piece of silverware.
Oh man, the faucet puts out like what, 2 gallons a minute?
Exactly. You can easily blast through 20 to 30 gallons of water just prepping the dishes for a machine that only needed 3 to do the whole job.
That is nuts. Not to mention the sheer amount of personal time you're throwing down the drain.
Your time is valuable.
Right. If you spend just 5 minutes a day meticulously rinsing dishes, that adds up to over 30 hours a year.
A full work week.
You're spending a full work week every single year standing at the sink, doing a chore that is actively destroying your glassware, tricking your machine's sensors, and wasting a small lake's worth of water.
It's madness when you put it like that.
Scrape the chicken bone into the trash, leave the sticky sauce, and just trust the engineering.
It requires a major psychological shift, though. Abandoning that instinct to clean before you clean is hard.
It really is. But once you accept the chemistry of the enzymes and the physics of the sensors, it's incredibly freeing.
Which naturally brings us to the next hurdle.
Loading it.
Right? You've got your scraped, unrinsed, saucy plate. Now, how do we physically load it into this machine without messing up the fluid dynamics?
Okay, so let's trace the journey from the sink to the top rack. Let's talk about the topography of the upper deck, starting with mugs and glasses.
The top rack is crucial.
Yeah, and the source video makes a very specific point about the geometry of how we place our coffee cups.
Yes, the source emphasizes that cups and mugs should never sit perfectly flat against the bottom grid of the top rack.
Which is how everyone puts them in.
I know. But they need to be positioned at a slight angle, specifically utilizing those angled grooves designed into the sides of the top rack.
And anyone who has ever unloaded a dishwasher knows exactly why this matters.
The dreaded splash.
Yes. There is nothing more soul-crushing than pulling the top rack out and suddenly this tidal wave of gross, lukewarm gray dishwasher water cascades off the bottom of your coffee mug.
And it splashes all over the perfectly clean dinner plates on the bottom rack.
It ruins everything. You have to dry them by hand.
And it's entirely a product of manufacturing and basic physics. Most ceramic coffee mugs have a concave indentation on the bottom.
Right, like that little hollowed-out ring.
Yeah, it's usually a result of how the ceramic is fired in the kiln. There's an unglazed ring that the mug sits on, creating a slight depression in the center.
So it's basically a bowl on the bottom of your cup.
Exactly. If you place that mug perfectly flat, upside down, that concavity becomes a miniature swimming pool. Because of the physics of surface tension, the water won't naturally spill over the edge of that rim if it's perfectly level. It just pools there.
And the machine's drying cycle can't evaporate a puddle that deep.
Exactly right. The radiant heat isn't intense enough to evaporate a solid quarter-inch of standing water.
So you just tilt it.
By simply tilting the mug and leaning it on an angle, you break that surface tension. You allow gravity to do the work.
The water runs completely off the bottom during the draining phase.
Which prevents that annoying splash, but it also drastically lowers the ambient humidity inside the tub, speeding up the drying time for the entire load.
It's just gravity, working smarter, not harder. But speaking of tilting those cups, we get to talk about one of my favorite little vocabulary words from the source video.
I know exactly what word you're going to say.
Those little plastic-coated prongs sticking up everywhere in the dishwasher. They're called tines. T-I-N-E-S.
It's a precise term. And understanding the structural purpose of the tines is crucial.
Right. The source brings up a vital rule regarding them. A critical, widespread mistake people make is placing their delicate glasses directly over the tines.
Meaning they invert the glass so the tine points straight up into the center of the cup.
I used to do this obsessively. I mean, it feels so secure. You put the glass over the spike and it feels anchored. It's not going to tip over. Why is that actually a terrible idea?
It feels secure when the machine is off. But you have to visualize what happens when the pumps engage.
Okay, painting a picture.
You have a rotary arm directly beneath that top rack, shooting jets of water upward at roughly 50 to 60 psi.
That's a lot of pressure.
It is. When those high-pressure water jets strike the inside of the glass acts like a parachute catching wind. It lifts and it chatters.
Chatters, like it bounces rapidly up and down.
Exactly.
So it's basically rattling against that hard plastic-coated steel prong for 2 straight hours.
Precisely. The tine is repeatedly, violently striking the interior walls of the glass. Over time, this induces structural fatigue.
Microabrasions and chipping around the rim.
Yeah. Or, if it's a particularly delicate wine glass, the chattering will simply cause the glass to shatter entirely mid-cycle.
And nobody wants to clean up broken glass from the bottom of a dishwasher.
It is a nightmare.
So if we don't use them like spike traps, how do we secure the glasses?
The tines are engineered to act as lateral dumpers. You should place the glasses firmly in between the rows of tines.
Between them. Got it.
The rim of the glass should rest securely on the softer, rubberized grid of the rack floor, while the tines gently press against the outside of the glass.
So they just sort of hug the glass?
Exactly. Holding it securely in place so it doesn't slide left or right without subjecting the interior to a battering ram.
Okay, glasses between the tines at a tilt. That makes total sense. Now let's talk about the plastic protocol.
Ah, plastics.
The source is rigid about this. Plastics must stay on the top rack. Tupperware, kids' cups, silicone spatulas. Why is the bottom rack a death sentence for plastics?
This comes down entirely to thermodynamics and the anatomical layout of almost every residential dishwasher on the market.
Thermodynamics in the kitchen. I love it.
If you pull out the bottom rack and look at the floor of the dishwasher tub, usually wrapping around the base of the wash arm, you'll see a thick, dark, exposed metal coil.
That is the Calrod heating element.
Yes.
It looks exactly like the burner element at the bottom of an electric oven.
Because mechanically, it's very similar. It's an electrical resistor. When the machine enters its drying cycle, or when it needs to boost the water temperature to hit that 150-degree sanitization mark, that Calrod element draws a massive amount of current and glows incredibly hot.
We're talking hundreds of degrees, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm?
And it transfers that heat through thermal radiation. Now, the fundamental law of radiant heat is the inverse square law. The intensity of the heat drops off exponentially the further away you get from the source.
So the bottom rack, being mere inches away from that glowing coil, is basically a blast furnace.
Exactly. Now, consider the material science of plastics. Most of your food storage containers are made of amorphous polymers, things like polyethylene or polypropylene.
Okay, standard Tupperware material.
Right. These materials have a specific thermal threshold called the glass transition temperature. It's the point where the polymer chains start to gain mobility, and the hard plastic turns rubbery, warps, and deforms.
And the radiant heat at the bottom rack hits that temperature.
It easily exceeds the glass transition temperature of many common household plastics.
Which is why you open the dishwasher and find your favorite meal prep container twisted into a modern art sculpture, and the lid never, ever fits again.
Precisely. By keeping plastic strictly on the top rack, you're utilizing vertical distance.
Distance is your friend.
The convective heat, the hot air, still rises to the top rack to dry the plastics perfectly fine. But they are safely out of range of the intense, direct thermal radiation emitted by that heating element down below.
So the top rack is the safe zone for plastics. Makes sense. The source also mentions laying long cooking utensils, like large spoons or spatulas, flat on the top rack.
Yes, and that solves a major clearance issue.
Because they block the arms.
Exactly. If you stick a 12-inch spatula vertically into the silverware basket on the bottom, the handle often protrudes upward and physically blocks the middle wash arm, the one attached to the bottom of the top rack, from spinning.
Laying them flat on the top rack ensures they get cleaned without jamming the machine's moving parts.
It's just a smart spatial move.
And there's a fantastic hack the source includes about sponges.
I really love this one.
A lot of people use those textured scrubbing sponges, like a Scrub Daddy or Scrub Mummy. The video says you can just throw them right onto the top rack.
It's a brilliant utilization of the machine's environment. A damp kitchen sponge at room temperature is arguably the most dangerous, bacteria-laden item in your entire house.
Worse than the toilet seat, I've heard.
Often, yes. The porous structure provides massive surface area, and the trapped moisture and microscopic food bits create the ultimate breeding ground for pathogens.
But the top rack fixes that.
By placing it on the top rack, you're subjecting it to a 150-degree water bath combined with caustic, enzyme-rich detergents. It utterly decimates the bacterial load, denatures the proteins, and neutralizes that awful, swampy mildew smell sponges develop.
It's basically an autoclave for your sponge.
Exactly.
But before we leave the top rack, there are some hidden features we need to uncover, and one massive warning. Because, honestly, I actually didn't know about this feature until recently, and it blew my mind.
You're referring to the height adjustment mechanisms.
Yes.
It is astounding how many people live with a dishwasher for a decade and never realize the top rack can actually move.
It's crazy. On the sides of the top rack of almost all modern models, there are these little plastic levers or push buttons. If you press them, the entire top rack drops down an inch or two, or you can lift it up. It completely changes the game.
It's an elegant solution to a common spatial problem. It's usually a simple rack and pinion or clip mechanism. Let's say you have an oversized pasta pot or massive 13-inch charger plates on the bottom rack.
And the spinning wash arm is hitting them.
Right. You simply pinch the levers on the top rack, lift it up a notch, and suddenly you've created clearance on the bottom.
Or the reverse. You have those ridiculously tall, long-stemmed wine glasses, and when you try to slide the top rack in, the rims hit the ceiling of the dishwasher.
A classic problem.
You just drop the rack down and they slide in perfectly. You don't have to hand wash them just because they're a quarter-inch too tall.
And if you happen to have a more basic model that lacks the vertical adjustment feature, the source points out another design inclusion.
The little flaps.
Yes. Many dishwashers have these little hinged plastic flaps on the sides of the top rack. They often look like little shelves.
I always wondered what those were for.
Those are actually stem grabbers. They have specific notches cut into them, designed to cradle the delicate stem of a wine glass.
Oh.
You fold the flap down, clip the stem in, and it anchors the glass. It completely prevents the chattering and vibration we discussed earlier, protecting your fragile crystal from shattering.
The engineers really have thought of everything.
They have.
But there is one material they explicitly want you to keep out of their machine: the cardinal sin of dishwashing.
Oh, yes. This is a big one.
The source is absolutely uncompromising on this. Never, ever put wood in the dishwasher. No wooden spoons, no wooden cutting boards, no steak knives with wooden handles.
This is a non-negotiable rule of material science. The environment inside a dishwasher is the most hostile, destructive atmosphere imaginable for wood.
But push back on this for a second. I wash my wooden cutting boards in the sink all the time. I use hot water, I use soap, it gets wet. What's the difference between the sink and the dishwasher?
The difference lies in the extremes of duration, temperature, and chemical chemistry. To understand why wood fails so spectacularly in a dishwasher, we have to look at its cellular biology.
Okay, getting scientific again.
Wood is not a solid block of plastic. It's composed of microscopic tubular cells, the xylem and phloem, that the living tree used to transport water and nutrients.
But it's organic.
And it is highly porous and hygroscopic, meaning it actively absorbs and releases moisture depending on its environment.
So it's essentially a tightly packed bundle of microscopic straws.
Precisely. When you hand wash a wooden spoon, it gets wet for maybe 30 seconds.
Barely enough time to absorb anything.
Right. When you put that same spoon in the dishwasher, you're trapping it in a sealed box, blasting it with near-boiling water for 2 straight hours. Capillary action forces the scalding water deep into those microscopic straws.
Oh, man.
The cellular structure of the wood rapidly absorbs the water and violently swells and expands.
Okay, so it gets super bloated.
Yes.
Sure.
And then the machine shifts into the drying cycle. The cowl rod heating element kicks on, blasting the swollen, waterlogged wood with intense, dry, radiant heat.
So it dries out incredibly fast.
The moisture is aggressively and rapidly drawn out of the wood, causing those same fibers to violently contract and shrink. This dramatic, rapid cycle of extreme swelling followed by extreme shrinking literally tears the structural bonds of the wood apart.
It's physical torture for the material.
And we haven't even factored in the detergent yet.
Oh, right, the highly caustic soap.
A highly caustic, alkaline nature of the soap strips away every drop of natural lipid and oil that keeps the wood supple. It attacks the lignin, the organic polymer that binds the wood fibers together.
That's why, after just a few runs in the dishwasher, a wooden spoon looks bleached, feels rough and splintery, and eventually develops massive cracks down the center.
Exactly. You are chemically and thermally disintegrating the tool.
Hand wash your wood. It takes 10 seconds. Treat your investments right. Speaking of maintaining the investments in your home properly, sometimes you need to call on the professionals to make sure things are truly taken care of. If you want to ensure the carpets and high-traffic areas of your home are getting the exact same level of scientifically backed deep cleaning care that your dishes are now getting, make sure you visit Kindeke Carpet Cleaning on Google.
That's really great advice.
Right. Just like your dishwasher uses targeted chemistry to protect your plates, professional carpet care protects the longevity and structure of your floors.
That's a perfect parallel. Whether it's the cellular structure of a wooden spoon or the fibers of a carpet, utilizing the proper cleaning mechanism for the specific material is what prevents degradation. And understanding proper mechanisms leads us perfectly into the lower half of the dishwasher.
Yes, let's descend into the high-pressure zone, the bottom rack, the heavy lifter.
The engine room.
Exactly. This is where the plates, deep bowls, the heavy pots, and the dishwasher-safe roasting pans go. And this brings us to what I consider the most mind-blowing conceptual shift in the entire process: the golden rule of direction.
If people take nothing else away from this deep dive, should be this.
Huh.
The dirty concave side of your dishes must always, without exception, point toward the absolute center of the machine.
Always point to the center. And this isn't just aesthetic organization, this is hardcore fluid dynamics. Why is the center so important?
Because the primary cleaning engine of the dishwasher is the lower rotary wash arm. It's a hollow plastic or metal spinning blade located at the bottom center of the tub.
So all the action starts there.
Yes. The circulation pump forces water into the center hub of this arm under immense pressure. The water then travels down the length of the arm and shoots out of specifically angled jets. The reactionary force of the water exiting those jets is what physically causes the arm to spin.
Like a lawn sprinkler.
It operates on the exact same mechanical principle as a rotary lawn sprinkler.
Right, so the water is initiating from that central hub and sweeping outward in a massive circle.
Exactly. Because the source of the water pressure originates at the center and sweeps outward, the maximum kinetic energy and the most direct mechanical shear force of the water are radiating outward from that central point.
I love this concept. The way I visualize this is to think of the very center of your dishwasher like the main stage at a massive rock concert.
A concert. Okay, I'm listening.
The water jets are the music blasting from the PA speakers.
Yeah.
If you go to a concert, you don't turn your back to the stage, right?
No, you want to face it.
You face the stage to get the full chest-thumping impact of the sound waves. Similarly, the dirty, food-caked side of your plate needs to face the stage. It needs to angle inward toward the center hub.
That's actually a brilliant way to picture it.
Because if you load a plate facing the outer wall of the dishwasher, the clean back of the plate is getting hit with all the primary water pressure, and the dirty front side is just getting weak secondary splashes rebounding off the plastic walls.
Your concert stage analogy perfectly illustrates the vector mechanics of the spray path. Fluid dynamics heavily relies on the angle of incidence.
Angle of incidence, meaning how the water hits it.
Right. If you take a bowl with dried, crusty oatmeal stuck to the inside and you place it on the outer edge of the rack facing the wall, the high-pressure water jets from the spinning arm hit the smooth, clean, convex exterior of the bowl.
And the water just bounces off.
The water deflects away.
Yeah.
The interior of the bowl, where all the oatmeal is entirely shielded from the stray. We call this the shadowing effect.
Shadowing. You're basically creating an umbrella out of your own plate that completely blocks the water from reaching the dirt.
That's exactly what's happening.
But wait, let me push back a bit. The inside of a dishwasher is chaos, right? It's a tiny hurricane in there. Water is bouncing off the walls, bouncing off the ceiling, ricocheting everywhere. Even if the plate faces the wrong way, surely the bouncing water hits the front of the plate eventually.
It does get wet, certainly, but getting wet and getting clean are two different things.
Okay, fair point.
Bouncing water has lost almost all of its kinetic energy. When a jet of water hits the wall and deflects back onto the plate, it lacks the mechanical shear force required to actually dislodge a hardened piece of cheese or a dried egg yolk.
It's just a gentle mist at that point.
Exactly. The enzymatic detergent needs that mechanical agitation, that direct high-pressure impact, to physically peel the broken-down food soils away from the ceramic surface. If you shadow the plate, you only get a passive rinse.
That makes total sense. Direct impact matters. Face the music, dirty side in.
It's so simple, but so effective.
It takes zero extra effort to slot the plate in facing the center instead of the wall, but it completely dictates whether you're eating off a clean plate tomorrow. Okay, let's move to a part of the bottom rack that is, in my experience, a completely lawless, chaotic zone.
I know where you're going.
The utensil basket.
The silverware basket is where all loading discipline tends to completely evaporate. People are tired, they have a handful of dirty forks and spoons, and they just blindly drop them in.
Oh, I've seen some absolute horrors in the utensil basket. But the source breaks this down beautifully into two very clear strategies. And it all depends on the specific design of your basket.
Yes, the design dictates the strategy.
So scenario A is if your basket has separators. Those are the little grid lids that snap down over the compartments, giving you individual slots for each piece of silverware.
Right. If your machine is equipped with those individual separator grids, the source recommends a grouping strategy. Because each piece of metal is physically isolated in its own slot by the plastic grid, you do not have to worry about them touching or crowding each other.
So they can't get tangled up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Therefore, you can group them by type. You can put all the forks in the left compartment, all the spoons in the middle compartment.
Which is incredible because when the cycle is done, unloading takes 5 seconds. You just grab the whole cluster of forks and drop them right into the drawer in one fluid motion.
It's incredibly efficient.
But there is a massive, massive caveat to this, especially regarding how things are pointing. The knife directive.
This is entirely a matter of domestic safety. Regardless of whether your basket has separators or not, knives must always, always point face down.
The sharp blade goes in the basket first.
Yes, the sharp blade must go into the basket first, with the handle sticking out.
I cannot emphasize this enough. Reaching blindly into a dishwasher to pull out a plate, or just slipping while leaning over the open door and driving the palm of your hand down onto an upward-facing steak knife.
It makes me wince just thinking about it.
It's a horror movie waiting to happen in your kitchen.
It is incredibly dangerous and entirely preventable. And from a strictly metallurgical perspective, pointing the knives down is also better for the blades themselves.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Now, granted, we generally recommend hand-washing high-carbon steel chef's knives, but for standard stainless steel dinner knives, placing the blade down protects the delicate sharpened edge. If the blade points up, other heavy silverware or plates can clatter against the exposed edge during the wash cycle, dinging and dulling the metal.
Protect your hands, protect the edge, blades down, always. Now, what about scenario B? What if you have an older dishwasher, or you lost the little grid lids, and your basket just has large open compartments?
If you're dealing with open compartments, the strategy completely flips. You absolutely cannot group your silverware by type.
No grouping.
No grouping. You must intentionally mix and alternate them. A fork, then a spoon pointing up, then a spoon pointing down, then a knife.
But why? Grouping them was so convenient for unloading. Why can't I just drop 10 spoons into one open square?
Because of a physical phenomenon called nesting. If you drop 10 spoons into an open basket, all facing the exact same direction, the vibration of the machine and the downward flow of water will cause those spoons to naturally slide perfectly together.
Oh, like stacking cups.
Yes, they nest into each other, like a stack of Russian nesting dolls.
Oh, right. The bowl of one spoon perfectly cups the back of the next spoon.
Exactly. And when they nest, two powerful forces take over. Capillary action draws water into the microscopic gap between the spoons, and van der Waals forces, essentially molecular surface tension, act like a vacuum, sucking the spoons tightly together.
So they form like a solid block of metal.
They form a solid block of metal. Now remember what we just learned about shadowing with the plates. When those spoons nest, the inner concave surfaces are entirely shielded from the high-pressure water jets and the detergent.
The fluid dynamics are bypassed entirely.
Exactly. You will pull out a clump of spoons at the end of the cycle, and while the outermost spoons might be clean, the middle 8 spoons will still be completely coated in dried peanut butter.
It's infuriating, and the fix is just geometry.
Yeah, geometry. By alternating them, putting a fork next to a spoon, flipping one upside down, the different shapes physically clash. They cannot nest,
You create irregular gaps and air spaces between every single piece of metal.
guaranteeing that the high-pressure water and the enzymes can circulate 360 degrees around every utensil.
Leveraging geometry to maintain proper fluid flow. Brilliant. All right, so we've loaded the top rack like structural engineers. The bottom rack is perfectly angled toward the concert stage. The silverware is safely alternated. We are ready to run this machine.
Almost ready.
Right. But wait, before you press start, we have to talk about we have to talk about the pre-flight checklist.
That's a great way to frame it. An airline pilot would never initiate takeoff without walking around the plane and checking the wings. You shouldn't press start on your dishwasher without performing 3 essential physical checks.
Let's walk through them. Check number 1.
Yeah.
The spinning jet. This relates directly to that bottom rotary arm we talked about.
Right. Once you have the bottom rack fully loaded and pushed all the way back into the machine, you need to physically reach your hand under the bottom rack and give that lower wash arm a quick spin.
Just manually curl it. What exactly are we looking for here? What goes wrong?
You are checking for vertical clearance. It is incredibly common for an oversized dinner plate, a tall baking sheet, or a long wooden spoon that someone foolishly put in the utensil basket to protrude downward, hanging below the wire grid of the bottom rack.
And if it hangs down.
If that object is hanging too low, it physically blocks the path of the spinning arm.
And if the arm can't spin.
If the arm cannot spin, the entire fluid distribution system fails.
Disaster.
The pump will push water through the arm, but because the arm is jammed against the spatula, it just shoots one continuous, localized stream of water straight up into the exact same spot on the ceiling for 2 hours.
Well, the rest of the dishes get nothing.
And the other 95% of the dishwasher stays completely dry and unwashed.
I have done this. There is no feeling quite as deeply frustrating as running a 2-hour cycle, opening the door expecting clean dishes, and realizing everything is still filthy because one single stray whisk handle dropped down and jammed the whole operation.
It is the worst.
Spin the arm, make sure it clears.
Oh.
Okay, check number 2, the filter.
This is, without a doubt, the most neglected maintenance task in the modern kitchen. Beneath that spinning wash arm, located at the very lowest point of the tub, is the dishwasher filter assembly.
The forgotten filter. Why is this little piece of mesh so critical?
Remember our very first topic. We established that you shouldn't pre-rinse, you should only scrape.
Right.
That means a significant amount of microscopic food, residue grains of rice, specks of herbs, breadcrumbs, coagulated grease, is being washed off the plates and flushed down to the bottom of the machine. The filter is a fine mesh trap designed to catch that solid debris.
So it's basically a net for all the food chunks.
It serves 2 vital functions. First, it prevents hard particulate matter from being sucked into the circulation pump, which could shatter the impeller blades and destroy the motor.
That sounds like a very expensive repair.
Very expensive. Second, it prevents that dirty food from being recirculated and sandblasted back onto your clean dishes.
So it's catching all the gross stuff. But if it's constantly catching food, eventually that trap gets full, right?
It becomes severely clogged. The mesh screen becomes caked in a thick layer of congealed fat and rotting organic matter.
Oh, wow.
When the filter is clogged, the pump has to work exponentially harder to pull water through that wall of sludge. The volumetric flow rate plummets.
So the spray gets weaker.
Exactly. This means the water pressure dropping out of the spray arms is drastically reduced and your dishes don't get clean.
Not to mention the smell.
Yes. That trapped organic matter begins to actively decompose in a warm, moist environment. Bacteria feed on the rotting food and produce hydrogen sulfide gas.
Like rotten eggs.
That is precisely what causes that horrible, swampy, garbage-like odor that sometimes billows out when you open the dishwasher door.
It's disgusting. So what's the maintenance schedule? How often should we be pulling this thing out?
Depending on how often you run a machine and how heavily soiled your plates are, you should inspect and clean it roughly once a month.
Once a month, okay.
It's usually incredibly simple. It just twists counterclockwise and pulls right out. You take it to the sink, rinse it under warm water, maybe hit it gently with an old toothbrush to clear the fine mesh, and lock it back in place.
That takes like 2 minutes.
Our source video actually emphasizes this step so heavily that they explicitly linked a separate, full step-by-step cleaning guide just for the filter. It is that crucial to the machine's operation.
Check the arm, clean the filter. Now, check number 3, the danger of overloading. Now listen, I'm going to push back hard on this one.
Uh-oh, let's hear it.
I am the undisputed champion of dishwasher Tetris. I will look at a completely packed dishwasher and I will find a way to wedge one more cereal bowl in sideways, balance a coffee cup on top of a spatula, and jam a Tupperware lid into a 1/4-inch gap. I feel like a domestic god when I get that door to latch shut.
You might feel like a god, but from a mechanical engineering perspective, you are systematically sabotaging the entire cleaning process.
Yeah. But I'm being efficient. I'm saving water. I'm getting 2 days worth of dishes done in one single load instead of running it twice. How is that bad?
It's a false economy because you are eliminating the most crucial invisible ingredient in the machine, empty space.
Empty space.
Yes. In a fluid dynamics environment like a dishwasher, space is literally an active ingredient in the cleaning process.
Wait, hold on. Explain that. How is empty space an active ingredient?
It comes down to volumetric flow and the return path of the water. The circulation pump is pulling water from the bottom sump, pushing it up through the arms and spraying it over the dishes.
Right.
That water must then cascade back down through the racks, carrying the dissolved food soils with it, so it can reach the filter, drop back into the sump, and be pumped through again.
Okay, a closed loop.
Exactly. But if you have played Tetris and packed every square millimeter of the rack, you have created a solid, impenetrable wall of ceramic and plastic, a dam. The water from the bottom arm hits the lowest layer of plates, but it cannot penetrate through the dense maze of dishes to reach the top rack. Furthermore, the water that does get sprayed gets trapped in the tight crevices you created. It can't quickly cascade back down to the sump.
So what happens to the pump?
The pump starves. The sump runs dry because all the water is temporarily suspended in the maze of overcrowded dishes. The pump starts pulling in air, which causes cavitation, a horrible grinding noise, and the water pressure instantly drops to zero.
Oh, so the arms just stop spraying?
You end up with dishes that have dried-on food, heavy detergent residue because the rinse cycle couldn't penetrate the wall of plates, and you just end up having to run half those dishes through a second cycle anyway.
So I didn't save any time at all.
You didn't save water or time. You doubled your effort and stressed the machine's motor. Leave adequate room. Give the water the physical space it needs to travel and drain.
Fine. Tetris is for video games, not dishwashers. I concede the point. Give the water room to breathe. All right, we have reached the final step. The machine is perfectly loaded. The checks are complete. It is time to add the soap and close the door. But even here, people get it wrong.
They really do.
We need to talk about the dispenser tray and debunk some seriously harmful viral hacks.
This step should be the most foolproof part of the entire routine, but unfortunately, internet culture has completely complicated it.
Oh, the internet. Where terrible advice goes incredibly viral, our source is very firm on this. Dishwasher pods belong inside the dispenser tray on the door. They do not belong thrown loosely into the bottom of the tub.
Absolutely not.
I want to talk about this viral TikTok and Instagram hack where influencers tell you to just chuck the pod into the bottom of the machine because it's quote-unquote faster and cleans better.
As an expert, I can tell you that is one of the most mechanically illiterate hacks currently circulating on social media.
Mechanically illiterate? Wow!
To understand why throwing the pod into the tub is so detrimental, we have to deeply break down the chronological programming of a modern dishwasher cycle. When you press start, the machine does not just fill up with water once and wash for 2 hours. It progresses through distinct programmed phases.
Okay, let's trace the journey of the water. I press start. What happens in minute 1?
The very first phase is the pre-wash cycle. The machine opens the inlet valve and takes in a small amount of fresh water. It sprays this cold or warm water around for about 10 to 15 minutes. The entire purpose of this phase is to hydrate the dried food, knock off the loose, heavy soils, and flush them away.
Makes sense.
And then, this is the crucial part, the drain pump engages and completely flushes all of that dirty, food-filled pre-wash water down the drain.
Right, it flushes the initial gross stuff away so you aren't washing your dishes in a soup of spaghetti sauce for 2 hours.
Exactly. Only after that initial dirty water is drained does the machine fill up with fresh, clean water, engage the Calrod heater to raise the temperature, and begin the main prolonged wash cycle. Now, let's look at the dispenser tray on the inside of the door. It has a little spring-loaded plastic lid that snaps shut over the pod.
Yeah, you push the pod in, click the lid shut, and it seals.
That lid is mechanically controlled by the dishwasher's internal computer via a small wax motor or an electronic solenoid. During that 10-minute pre-wash phase, the lid remains securely locked. The pod is completely protected from the pre-wash water.
Ah, so it saves the soap.
Once the dirty water drains and the machine fills with fresh water for the main cycle, the computer sends an electrical signal. The solenoid triggers, the spring pops the lid open, and the detergent pod drops into the hot, fresh water at the exact mathematically calculated moment to begin its prolonged enzymatic breakdown of the food.
Oh man, I see where this is going. So if you follow the viral internet hack...
If you follow the hack and just throw the pod into the bottom of the tub before you shut the door, that pod is subjected to the pre-wash cycle. The thin polyvinyl alcohol casing dissolves almost instantly in the first 2 minutes.
No.
All of those highly engineered enzymes, the complex surfactants, the bleaching agents, they are activated immediately. They slosh around for 10 minutes, doing practically nothing, and then the drain pump kicks on and flushes 100% of your expensive detergent straight down the city sewer line.
Leaving absolutely nothing for the actual main wash.
Precisely zero detergent. When the machine fills up for the 2-hour main cleaning cycle, the water is completely devoid of soap. You are essentially just spraying hot tap water onto your dishes for 2 hours.
It is so incredibly ironic. People follow an internet hack thinking they are outsmarting the system or saving themselves the literal half-second it takes to slide the little plastic door shut, and they are actively sabotaging millions of dollars of engineering research.
It's tragic, really.
They are guaranteeing that they get dirty, unsanitized dishes.
It highlights a much broader issue of technological literacy. We are surrounded by complex machines, but we don't take the time to understand the logic behind their design. The engineers who designed the dispenser tray put it there and wired it to the computer for a very specific, calculated chemical reason. Trust the engineering. Put the pod in the tray. Close the lid. Let the machine execute its programming.
It's wild how much thought goes into this boring metal box that we totally take for granted. I feel like we have literally re-engineered our relationship with a household appliance over the last hour.
Let's do a final synthesis of all this because it's a lot to take in.
If we synthesize all these methods, what emerges is a clear pattern of working in harmony with physics, chemistry, and thermodynamics.
Right. Working with the machine, not against it.
By trusting the biological enzymes and ignoring the urge to pre-rinse, we save vast amounts of water and improve the chemical efficacy of the soap. By utilizing precise angles for our mugs on the top rack, we conquer the physics of surface tension.
By keeping our plastics away from the heating element and keeping wood entirely out of the machine, we respect material science. By facing the dirty side of the plates toward the center hub, we optimize fluid dynamics and water pressure vectors. And by placing the detergent pod in the dispenser tray, we respect the machine's chronological programming.
It completely transforms what usually feels like a menial, annoying daily chore into a highly efficient, foolproof, satisfying system. You aren't just doing dishes. You are managing a controlled chemical and mechanical process.
Exactly.
And once you know the rules, once you see the matrix, you can't unknow them. You will never look at a flat coffee cup or a pre-rinsed plate the same way ever again.
There is a profound satisfaction in doing something correctly, fundamentally from the ground up. It removes the friction from domestic life.
Absolutely. Which brings me to a final provocative thought for everyone listening to mull over today as they head into their kitchen. If we have been loading our dishwashers completely wrong for years, simply because we misunderstood the basic fluid dynamics and engineering of the machine, what other everyday household appliances are we completely misusing out of sheer habit?
That's a great question.
Are we packing our refrigerators in a way that blocks the condenser airflow and destroys our food? Are we loading our washing machines in a way that ruins the tensile strength of our clothes? It makes you want to go dig through your junk drawer and read every single instruction manual in your house.
I highly recommend doing exactly that.
And before you dive into those manuals, remember that maintaining a home isn't just about what you do daily. It's about knowing when to bring in the heavy artillery. If you want to ensure your carpets are getting the exact same level of scientifically backed, targeted, deep cleaning care that your dishes are now getting, make sure you visit Kindeke Carpet Cleaning on Google. It's all about using the right techniques, the right chemistry, and the right physics for a cleaner home.
An excellent point to end on. Questioning our inherited habits is the absolute first step toward genuine efficiency and a smoother life.
Well said. Thank you for listening to the Are You Loading Your Dishwasher Wrong podcast.